Good morning. You're watching a remote broadcast of Businessworld Live. I'm Jess De Los Santos. It's 10:30 a.m. this Wednesday in Manila. We are about an hour into the trading day, but first, let's go straight to our top story. Another day, another bleak outlook for the domestic economy. This time, it's a World Bank forecasting a contraction for Philippine GDP. The multilateral lender sees the economy to shrink by 1.9% in 2020 on the back of ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. This is a turnaround from the earlier projection in April that GDP will grow by up to 3% this year. World Bank senior economist Rong Kian said they expect the contraction to deepen in the second quarter and recession to remain until the third quarter before posting what they described as muted growth in the last 3 months of 2020. But NEDA acting chief Carl Kendrick Chua says the economy may start rebounding by the third quarter as the country is now placed under a more relaxed form of community quarantine. Recall that the economy contracted by 0.1% in the first quarter as the enhanced community quarantine that started on March 15 halted economic activities in Luzon. And as the economy slumps, the World Bank estimates that 1.2 million more Filipinos will slip below the poverty line this year. It touted the subsidy programs of the government, such as the 200 billion peso social amelioration programs, saying it will partially offset income losses for the poor. But it noted that vulnerable households excluded from the aid program, as well as those who are receiving the benefits in a belated manner, are likely to fall to poverty. Moving forward, the World Bank says the Philippines needs to adopt critical reforms to ensure recovery, especially ramping up digital transformation, which is seen as crucial under the so-called new normal. The World Bank has maintained its 6.2% growth projection and 7.2% growth in 2022. Now, here are other stories we're watching this morning. The government has now raised over $6.5 billion from loans and grants to fund its COVID-19 response. This as the Finance Department signed an agreement with the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank for a $750 million loan on June 5. The agency expects to receive the full amount of this loan within the month. This comes on top of the $5.8 billion previously raised by the government from a combination of loans, global bonds, and grants. The loan is part of AIIB's share in co-financing the country's COVID-19 active response and expenditure support or CARES program with the ADB. But an advisor to ADB's own research office cautions that the size of a government spending package is not a reliable indicator of how effective its response is to the pandemic. Jesus Felipe, an advisor to the ADB's Economic Research and Regional Cooperation Department, says all countries were caught unprepared when the pandemic hit. Therefore, there is no absolute way to measure the appropriate amount that a government should spend. Felipe explains comparisons of spending packages within the region thus have little validity. He says this is not a case of the bigger, the better. An ADB database shows that the Philippine government's pandemic response package is the sixth largest in Southeast Asia and fifth smallest relative to population. PEZA is aiming to find job opportunities for repatriated OFWs at economic zones outside of Metro Manila. In a text message, PEZA Director General Charito Plaza said they are now coordinating with locator companies to discuss manpower and skill requirements. The program also eyes to train the displaced workers to match their skills with their local industries. PEZA hopes that this will encourage growth of domestic suppliers to minimize disruptions in the supply chain for imported materials amid the ongoing COVID-19 crisis. Plaza also explained that some companies were not able to operate during the lockdown, and this program will help the domestic market to become production and export driven rather than import and consumption dependent. More than 27,000 OFWs had already been repatriated due to the pandemic, and 42,000 more are set to arrive this month. All right, time to have a quick check of the markets. But before that, let's kick things off with some fresh trade data here. You have April exports plunging by 50.8% to 2.784 billion dollars, way more than the peg decline of 25.8% as estimated by economists surveyed by Bloomberg. That's the biggest contraction that we've seen since January of 2009. In fact, one of the key export components here, electronic products, in fact, which gets a lion's share of the country's exports, even declined by 48.6% in April. Imports likewise fell 65.3% to $3.28 billion, exceeding estimates of a 31.4% drop for the month of April. That narrows trade deficit to $499.2 million from $2.73 billion in March. Now moving over to how things are faring over in the markets, things not looking good as well here. You have the index so far in morning trade declining by 1.75%. We are once again below the 6,500 level, now at 6,469.28 to be exact. Yesterday, we did see the PSCI continuing the rally that we saw at the start of the week on the back of optimism that the economy is slowly reopening. It edged higher Tuesday over a percent to 6,583. One catalyst perhaps for yesterday's rally, according to AB Capital Securities, is build projects resuming construction, sparking hopes of a strong recovery. That includes projects ongoing projects in NLEX, Cavitex, the Subic Freeport Expressway, the Calex, and even the BGC Ortigas Link Bridge. If you will notice here on the chart right here, market has been on an upswing since mid-May, ever since news of a possible vaccine broke out, even bringing the index beyond the 6,000 level to where we are now. That, of course, also follows the easing of quarantine rules in Metro Manila. As you can see as well, the chart, our index, since that lowest point in March 19, has managed to climb to where we are now at the 6,400 level, according to Manny Lisbona of PNB Securities. There's a pull and tug really between the bears and the bulls, with some investors doubting if the climb is sustainable. But according to Chris Mangon of AAA Securities, he is seeing a pullback by the end of the week. There are concerns that the rally is overextended. Plus, you have foreign investors remaining undecided as fund flows go back and forth. In fact, yesterday, they were net buyers at 62 million pesos, a reversal from the selling that we saw a day ago. But some firms continuously being heavily battered here due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's kick things off with Chelsea Logistics, saying they are now studying the possibility of laying off some workers, employees within the next 6 months at least. That plan, at least the possibility of laying off workers might be on the drawing board. That's to soften the blow from the pandemic. President and CEO Chris Damay is saying it might be implemented in phases. Other than that, they're deferring their capex as well for now, except for those which have already been committed. They are now working on strengthening their balance sheet and disposing aging and underperforming vessels. But definitely, they're working on right-sizing the workforce. Still, however, they remain keen on their planned airport and port projects in Davao. Looking at Chelsea, however, you can see here, at least at the start of Wednesday trade, they are in the green, up 6.8% to 4 pesos a piece. As you can see as well, the stock managing to climb from that March 19 low that we saw in the index. While things, however, are not doing that well, at least operation side for Chelsea Logistics, it's a different story altogether here for All Home. They are widening their store network, adding 4 more stores to their retail network, bringing them to 45 stores across the country. They are opening 3 branches in Mindanao and 2 more in Luzon, including branches in Nueva Ecija and San Ildefonso, and those in Mindanao include Butuan and Coronadal. And to that, they are opening All Home Santiago in Isabela by the 3rd quarter of the year, according to their president, Benjamin Marie Serrano. They have a solid pipeline. Add to that the ability to actually fast track construction of their stores, looking at how All Home is performing. You can see here the stock is now up 0.4% to 8 pesos a piece, at least for the past 3 days. All Home has been gaining. They are up 14.7% for the past 3 days. Now, from there, things looking bright as well for one stock here, telco giant PLDT. That at least is according to Fitch Ratings. Fitch Rating is saying that PLDT's revenue is expected to climb by a low to mid single digit percentage, while competition globe might actually suffer a decline, according to Fitch as well. PLDT's broader service diversification and entrenched fixed line position is considered to be advantageous in mitigating revenue pressure in its wireless business, but investments for mobile revenue and broadband installations might temper a bit the growth. This comes after the telco giant expressed bullishness that their first half output will surpass last year's performance, with revenues in April and May already picking up since Easter Sunday. PLDT Chairman Manuel Pangilinan is saying that PLDT is emerging stronger from this pandemic. Looking at first quarter figures, however, they did not fare so well. Net income plunging 12% to 5.91 billion pesos, but they're optimistic that they can turn things around for the first half of the first quarter. As you can see here, PLDT, in fact, one of our top gainers for the day here. They are up 2.4% to 1,222 a piece for the past 3 days here. They are also on a winning streak here, up 3.6%. PLDT is now laying down plans on how to navigate through the so-called new normal brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. One News chief correspondent Ed Lingao sat down with PLDT chairman and CEO Manny V Pangilinan in a remote interview to discuss the telco giant's ventures, which includes partnerships with the education department. Let's listen in.
Sir, in your parting message to your shareholders yesterday, you were talking about the 2020 outlook, and you used the word liminality. It's from the Latin word limen, which means threshold. It's a period of uncertainty or a state of ambiguity. Yet, at the same time, you and your officers also spoke about PLDT getting bigger and better numbers despite the pandemic, or maybe even because of the pandemic, because now people have to go online. So despite the conservative outlook, clearly the challenge has also brought much potential for telecoms. Now, let me ask you this, sir. With the better numbers you are seeing now for PLDT, how is PLDT positioning or repositioning itself? Do you see any need to retweak or to reprioritize any of your plans for 2020?
Sabi nga nila, don't waste a crisis, di ba? So from a business perspective, there are new opportunities that have opened up, or at least the need has become more immediate and really critical, no? For example, yung education of our students, di ba? Kasi kung hindi bubuksan ng gobyerno ang mga eskwela, for so long as the vaccine is still around, so long as the virus is still around and the vaccine is not yet found, then medyo that's something that we hope we can help address, no, by way of distance learning, e-learning, to get the education of the students ongoing. Na hindi sila they don't want to get delayed, no, in their learning process. So our enterprise group has been in very active discussions with the Department of Education, no? And we have recommended a broad range of digital solutions to them, from the learning management platform, connectivities, and I think the most challenging one would be providing the digital devices to the students, particularly the public school students, and so we look at how we can address that. No,
these are going to be major, I suppose, for example, investments. If you're talking about devices
correct.
for 30 million thereabouts, students and their teachers as well. We're not yet even talking about the connectivity infrastructure. We're so far only talking about the devices. Now this is going to be a big investment for PLDT.
It will be because the cost of the devices alone, no? So we need more data from the Department of Education, how many of the students really don't have smartphones, for example, or laptops. I think I would guess most of them,
Yes,
most
sir.
of the public school.
Actually, sir,
children
even
don't have
teachers.
that.
Even teachers have that problem.
Teachers, yun pwede namin tulungan kasi may PLDT program yung Gabay Guro, no? Doon siguro we can help. And there are only about 1.2 million of them. So I think most of them probably have the digital devices already. But we need to understand what the entire needs and what the digital learning process would entail by way of cost. No?
You also pointed out that the pandemic has exposed several weaknesses in the system. In particular, you mentioned the food security, the supply chain vulnerabilities, health infrastructure, digitalization of processes, and so on down the line. And I suppose these are some of the key aspects that PLDT plans to invest in or go into.
Siguro it will have to be another arm of the group, most likely Metro Pacific or even any of the arms of First Pacific, no? Because as you know, Indofood is engaged in significant food production in Indonesia and elsewhere, no? So we hope to replicate some of the things they're doing, like Indofood is in greenhouse production of vegetables. And so we're very keen to replicate that here, no? Kasi, di ba, mahirap yung if people feel there's a shortage, you know, they hoard, and you could see people queuing up and so forth and so on. So we need to address the food security aspects, and of course the logistical aspects of the food producing areas of the country, and the markets are basically here in the greater Metro Manila area, di ba?
But sir, you're also talking about other things like, for example, telemedicine, which I suppose PLDT would also be interested in.
Yes. Well, yun naman is to be able to give a first-hand diagnostics of what could be wrong with the person. No, the Multisys has made the first step with their app, Stay Safe, that has elements of contact tracing and elements of being able to find out how you are, because it basically has a list of questions that you need to answer to be able for the app with some artificial intelligence to be able to tell you what might be wrong with you. No? But I think we need to go further than that. I think the devices they have must have endowed with certain diagnostic capabilities.
All of these are things related to bring everything online.
Yes.
With everything going online, people working from home, the home now becoming the office, as well as the home now becoming their leisure, points of leisure and entertainment. How does this change the list of products and services that PLDT wants to put forward for the years ahead? Are you looking at offering more services online, whether it's infrastructure or software development?
Well, it's likely to open up new products and services, no, in those areas. Even e-government, education, health, food production. We need to be able to have a logistical blueprint of the country, the food production areas as well, and a number of other things that could open up. So that's why I think PLDT has traditionally been very good at infrastructure and connectivity, and we will continue with that kind of skill base and expertise that PLDT has developed historically. But beyond that, we're very aware that we must provide digital solutions already. And that's where the enterprise group, together with EPLDT, will have to come in with enterprise solutions, digital solutions, by working with the government and with the private sector, with business. No? So to see what they actually need by way of digital solutions. No?
Well, sir, one more question. I do recall Mr. Al Panlilio, your Chief Revenue Officer, talking about PLDT providing the connection during the pandemic, but now seeing the need, now that we are with GCQ, seeing the need to go beyond being connected, go beyond the connections, now going into helping getting people back on their feet. I suppose you're also talking about getting businesses and enterprises back on their feet and back to what we would now call the new normal. Tell us a bit about that. As far as your vision of PLDT is concerned, how can your company help other businesses, other companies get back on their feet under this new normal?
That's a tough question because, our heart goes out to the 7.3 million unemployed. I think that's the latest unemployment statistics that you just read, no, from the government, from the daily wage earners who now rely on the government social amelioration program for their lifeline, and for a number of MSMEs which have had to shut down, and it's not very clear how many of them could stay in business beyond this quarantine period. No, so I think for us we should. The group, now speaking as a group, should get into activities that provide as many jobs as we can. Food production is one of them because it is no matter what labor intensive, no, and helping out the MSMEs get back on their feet, providing digital solutions, providing maybe even financial help to them to get back on their feet. So it's clearly we cannot do it alone. No, this is a very, very, very significant problem.
Because their survival is also, I suppose, our survival as a whole. Anyway, sir, if I may squeeze in one more question about the national ID system. You also mentioned that during your discussion. Tell us about your plans for the national ID system and how you plan to integrate this with the PLDT's services.
Well, we've been encouraging that, actually, the government. I think it's merely more of a government decision. No? I think, if I recall correctly, there has been passed a national ID law.
Yes, sir.
But it is not compulsory. I think it is, as I understand, it's going to be done in phases. And,
yes, sir. It was supposed to roll out fully this year.
Yeah, but it's not compulsory. So it's done in stages, as I understand it, and it's optional. Mahirap yun. Then you don't know. Mahirap ang contact tracing, di ba? Kung hindi mo kilala. So, and the ability of, for example, of financial institutions to lend money to people if they don't know who you are, it's hard, di ba? Yung KYC which is the basic tenet of lending.
Yeah, know your client. Yes, sir.
Oh, tsaka yung contact tracing. The best examples of countries that immediately responded to the virus were Korea and Taiwan, because at the onset of the pandemic, they went immediately into the data, building a database for those people who got affected and the people that they interacted with. So using credit card information, phone information, and so forth and so on. So subject, of course, to the relevant data privacy laws that may be applicable in their country. So I think there's an inherent fear of a national data system as being Orwellian in nature, no? That I know who you are and so forth. But there are many, many advantages to having that in terms of your driver's license, car registration, passports, POEA, and not to mention cash subsidies. Kasi if you could disperse directly to the individual recipients.
Yeah, the Social Amelioration Fund, for example.
And then the banking system, financial institutions can help out because kung kilala nila kung sino yun, di ba? About 60-70% of our people don't have bank accounts. So yun. So I don't think we should be afraid of that.
So there you have it. PLDT Chairman and CEO Manny V Pangilinan talking about the prospects for PLDT coming into the new normal. That's after, of course, you have the telco giant being optimistic, really, that they are going to surpass their first half output from last year. You have PLDT saying that they are also in talks with the Department of Education for digital learning. Also, Pangilinan did say, they are exploring ventures in food production. Add to that as well, they are looking at the possibility of of using technology for online medical diagnosis like telemedicine. PLDT Chairman Manny V Pangilinan also did talk about, how they are going to continuously work with the private sector for digital solutions, given, of course, the backdrop of the pandemic. They are also looking into activities that can help provide jobs. And lastly, he did say, he is, in fact, of course, pushing for the rollout of the national ID system, looking at how PLDT is performing, at least so far, 10:55 in the morning. You have the stock here now at 1,228 apiece. That is a climb of 2.9%. In fact, they are one of the top gainers here for the index. But for now, let's have a check of how the local bourse is performing. As you can see here, not faring so well here. The index down by 2.3%, now at 6,434.47. We did get word, of course, from Chris Mangan. He is expecting a bit of a pullback at the end of the week, since there's pretty much the bulls and the bears are still at it, considering that some are even doubting, that even saying, in fact, that the rally that we've been seeing, at least for the past few days, is already overextended as it is. Again, you have the index now down 2.3% to 6,400. Looking at our leaders and laggards here, let's have a check of how our stocks are performing, at least at the start of the trade. You have PLDT leading the gainers here. Again, it is up 2.5%. Jollibee likewise gaining over 2%. Only three stocks here in the green, at least for the benchmark index. You have Pure Gold also up 0.6%. But on the losing end, you have the likes of URC. They are now down 5%. A number of banks as well here in the red, the likes of BDO edging lower over 4%. Security Bank also down 3%. And even Metro Bank, which is now inching down by 3.5%. Now, from there, let's have a check as well of our local currency here. We did see the peso, the patient peso, retreating yesterday after the BSP signaled a pause in policy rate cuts. Add to that the upward correction in the dollar, which, according to RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort, really just following better sentiments in the U.S. market. Let's check in on the peso coming in stronger, at least at the start of this hump day trade. The peso now at 49 pesos spot, 935 to the greenback. Again, the BSP also, other moves here. You have the BSP saying that they are going to gradually resume offering term deposits with longer maturities, as well as put back on the table the 200 billion peso offerings under reverse repurchase facility. This is, they observe a stabilization of liquidity conditions over the past weeks, indicating a gradual normalization in the central bank's monetary operations. Again, before we end the broadcast, let's have a quick check of how the index is performing so far. It's still below that 6,500 level, down 2.3% at 6,429.63 to be exact. And that's a first look into the business day this Wednesday, June 10, 2020. Catch us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News.